I wanted a new motorcycle that would suit me and be quick and attractive. I came across an advertisement for a motorcycle I had been looking for a while on Craigslist one day, and it seemed too good to be true. It was only $3,000. I was ecstatic to have the chance to finally own my dream bike, which made me feel utter joy. Only one photo and no specific information were included in the advertisement. The allure of this price was too great for me to resist, despite the lack of information. But there were still a few things I questioned, such as why someone would offer to sell such a valuable bike for such a low price, and whether there was a problem with it. Curiosity won, so I made the decision to take a chance. As soon as I got in touch with the seller, Alex, I could tell he was eager to sell his bike. He responded promptly, and soon we were meeting at his house to finalize the deal. He provided an address that was located in a peaceful rural area with lots of meadows nearby. My excitement and anxiety both increased as the meeting day drew near. It was a little unsettling to purchase a motorcycle from a stranger's home, but the chance was too alluring to pass up. I reassured myself that it was just a regular person attempting to sell something. I arrived at the address just before it got dark outside. Only the distant sound of crickets seemed to be breaking the silence in the neighborhood. I stopped my car and inhaled deeply before walking up to his house. I had the distinct impression that I was being watched as I made my way to the front door, but there was nobody there when I looked around. I put it down to anxiety and explained it away by saying I was excited to finally have my dream bike. The door opened quickly after I knocked on it. He was standing there and appeared a bit overexcited. His hands displayed a slight tremble, and his eyes flitted around agitatedly. "Hello, feel free to enter. The bike is in the living room," he said hastily. I was hesitant to follow him inside the house because of his insistence on getting right to the point. It was a tidy house with a dimly lit interior. The motorcycle, which was gleaming in the soft light, caught my attention right away. I asked, trying to gauge the circumstance, "Is the motorcycle still in good condition?" He responded almost too quickly. "Oh, absolutely. It's perfect. No issues at all." The bike had some dings and wear that I didn't see in the picture when I looked at it more closely. I began to wonder if there was more to it, but still, I made the decision to buy the bike and leave without giving it much thought. Then something in the living room's corner caught my attention as I reached for my wallet to make the payment. It was a man with a balaclava over his face who was standing still and holding a knife. I felt my body swell with panic and fear as I considered the circumstance. I was being set up. This was a trap from the start. My mind was racing with fear and uncertainty as I tried to figure out how to get out of this situation. Before he said, "Hand over your wallet and phone immediately." I had no time to respond. I realized I needed to take immediate action. My decision to flee for my life was made in an instant. I turned around and sprinted outside the door, disobeying his orders. The masked man stabbed me in the shoulder as I turned to run. He stabbed me with a sharp object, but the adrenaline rushing through my body made the pain bearable. Without daring to turn around, I ran as fast as my legs would carry me. Fear drove me to run, and as I forced myself to do so, the terrifying situation seemed to last forever. I was constantly worried that the masked assailant was following me and getting ready to attack. I eventually arrived at a major thoroughfare and stopped a passing vehicle. The driver immediately pulled over and dialed the police. I was driven to the neighborhood hospital so my wound could be attended to. I was shocked and traumatized by the events of that terrifying encounter as I lay in the hospital bed. The house was empty when the police showed up to look into the incident, as was to be expected. The thieves had carefully planned their escape. They had rented the house under a false name. This experience has followed me ever since that day and made me more aware of the risks that can lurk behind a seemingly safe online transaction. I'll start approaching online purchases with caution from now on, and will never allow the allure of a deal to cloud my judgment. That motorcycle cost much more than $3,000. It almost took my life. Story 2. Craigslist iPhone. I chose to sell my old iPhone 12 because I had just bought a new one. In addition to Craigslist, I had listed the cell phone on a number of other websites. Although it still had a nice appearance, I found it to be too inconvenient that you had to put it in a certain position before it would charge. I decided to sell the phone for a lot less money as a result. After taking some photos and creating a description that matched, I posted the ad in the hopes of finding a buyer right away. Soon after, I got a message from a man who went by the name of Sherelle, which I already thought was a strange name. He appeared to believe the cell phone was ideal and wanted to purchase it that very day, despite the flaw, because I was fine with it and wanted to get rid of it right away. I sent him my address. It made me feel strange even though I was unable to articulate why. I started preparing for the man's arrival that evening. I reminded myself repeatedly to relax because it was only a quick sale. However, as time went on, my anxiety grew. Finally, a knock on the door was heard. A tall, scary man was standing there when I unlocked the door. He smiled and kindly said hello to me, but something about his demeanor seemed off. "Can I see the phone?" he said. I nodded for him to come in. He moved in front of me, bringing back the strange feeling I had been carrying all day. Because the room had changed and the atmosphere had altered as well, I no longer felt at home. He lightly touched the phone's screen and gave it a close examination. He moved slowly and deliberately, and I couldn't help but get the unsettling feeling that he was a psychopath. Then he turned and grinned icily at me. "I'll take it," he replied quickly, pulling out a stack of cash. I led him outside after taking his money, glad to be rid of the cell phone. He got into his van, but as I watched him drive off, he grinned creepily at me. Days passed, and I couldn't shake the strange feeling that had crept inside of me ever since his visit. I thought he was strange, and my suspicions about him were growing, because I frequently noticed a black van parked close to my home. I thought he was keeping an eye on me. I sought out friends and family to help me overcome my anxiety about being alone in my home. They told me that I was being overly dramatic and that he was probably just an average guy. However, one day, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a noise coming from the backyard. I hesitantly looked out the window. My heart almost stopped. Through the window of my bedroom, he was peering menacingly with a smile. I quickly shut off the light and went to my room, hoping that would get him to leave. The few minutes I was waiting felt like hours as my heart raced in my chest. After some time had passed, I heard some footsteps moving farther away. and I plucked up the courage to look again. Though he was gone, my anxiety persisted. He was always following me, and I just couldn't bear to think about it. The following day, I reported him to the police to let them know about the strange encounters and my growing concern for my safety. Without concrete evidence of a crime, they could not do much, despite their assurances that they would look into it. I put surveillance cameras all around my house to act as a deterrent. Thankfully, I saw his car fewer times over the ensuing weeks, and I gradually began to feel normal again. Nevertheless, I was profoundly affected by the encounter. You won't find me on Craigslist anytime soon. I've learned to be cautious when communicating online and to trust my instincts. I'm still curious about his motivations and what is causing him to be so fixated on me. While there was nothing supernatural about the encounter, the fear and apprehension it gave me were very real. It serves as a reminder of the odd characters who might be hiding behind a Craigslist ad. Story 3. Craigslist Doll. My niece turns 10 next week, and I wanted to get her a birthday present, so I started looking for ideas. I came across a Craigslist advertisement for an antique doll that seemed like the perfect gift while perusing the site. I was drawn to the advertisement because it offered a free doll, so I figured why not. Little did I know that this choice would take me down a perilous and terrifying path. I contacted the seller on the phone. He came off as a bit strange. He spoke in a quick, almost frantic manner and appeared anxious. "Come on over to my house and pick it up today, please." Later on that day, I drove to his house. On the outside, it appeared to be a normally maintained house. I walked to the front door and rang the bell. He greeted me with a broad grin that almost reached his eyes as soon as he unlocked the door. The air in the house felt oppressive and heavy as he ushered me inside. Compared to the outside, the interior of his home didn't appear to be as well maintained. He asked, his voice trembling a little. "You're here for the doll, right?" "Yeah, that's right," I said, trying to keep the conversation light. "Good, I just want to get rid of it. I can't wait to get it out of here. It's been sitting in the attic for years," he said, almost too eagerly. The doll was there in a dimly lit corner in the attic after I had followed him there. I couldn't help but feel dread as I stared at the creepy porcelain face. He said, "Thank you for taking it over from me. I have to run some errands now. I'm glad I could help you further." With the doll in my hand, I left his house as a strange sensation swept through my body. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that this toy, which appeared to be innocent, had a flaw. When I got home, I set the doll on a shelf and made the decision to wrap her up later in the week. But as the days went by, strange things started to happen. The doll seemed to shift positions at night, or have her eyes follow me around the room at first, which was subtle. I brushed it off as a trick of my imagination. But the incidents grew more intense and unsettling as the week went on. In the middle of the night, I heard a whisper in my ear. It said my name. I opened my eyes, startled, but there was no one in sight. The following evening, the creaking of the bedroom door woke me up. I was horrified to see the empty hallway outside as the door slowly opened. I was unable to explain how the door opened on its own because I was certain that I had shut it before turning in for the night. The breaking point occurred when I overheard something falling in the kitchen late at night. As soon as a feeling of dread overcame me, I knew I had to get rid of it. I made an attempt to speak with the seller in the hopes that he could explain the strange events, but he appeared to ignore me. He did not respond to my emails or phone calls, and I could not find him online. I decided to go to his home, but no one was home, or he didn't open the door for me. I made the decision to bury the doll in a remote area far from my house in a last-ditch effort to get rid of the cursed object. As soon as I had dug the hole, I quickly threw the doll inside. I experienced an odd mix of relief and unease as the doll sank into the ground. Had I merely suppressed my fears, or had I unintentionally let loose something even more ominous? I still have the uneasy feeling that the doll's evil spirit is haunting the world, watching and waiting for its next unwitting victim. I made an effort to simply move on with my life, but every little creak that occurs in my home causes me to remember that terrifying week